Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to talk about underground sprinkler systems, and we'd like to thank Stacy Lynn for liking and sharing the podcast. And we'd also like to thank CastBox for featuring us again in their education category. And if you're looking for a good podcast app for Android, they're at castbox.fm. In ancient Egypt, they used a paddle-driven water wheel that lifted small buckets out of the water, and then they were tipped over and the water was splashed into hollowed-out logs, and they used that to get water down to areas that they wanted to irrigate, and they called it a noria. The first patent for an underground sprinkler system in the U.S. was in 1871.
Wow. What are the benefits of having an underground sprinkler system? Because it kind of seems like a lot of work.
Well, once you do the initial work, it's a lot easier. Because rather than a garden hose and a sprinkler, which, you know, some of the sprinklers are hard to adjust, you've got to put it in an area. You need to know how long it takes to water. Let's say you want an inch worth of water a week for your yard. Mm-hmm. How long do you have to leave that hose and sprinkler in one area? Then you have to go outside after 20 minutes, let's say,
right,
and then move it. And you want to put it in a place where you're not overwatering any of the areas. So you know it's much more difficult using just a garden hose and a sprinkler. Mm-hmm. So if you set up these sprinkler systems, you can actually have the perfect flow of water. It's going to be very even water distribution. It's going to prevent you from overwatering or underwatering areas. And then you don't have to be home to water, which is not. Some of them, the new kits have Wi-Fi controls.
Oh, wow.
So you can be out of town and watering your lawn. Some of them have, and in fact, in a lot of communities, you have to have rain detection to prevent overwatering.
So you have more control over your watering and you save water?
Right. And if you have a permanent in-ground watering system, it can increase your home value.
Oh, nice.
When you're planning an in-ground sprinkler system, you want to create a detailed map.
In-ground or underground?
Underground, in your ground. You want a detailed map of your yard, your landscape area, and your garden if you have one. Uh-huh. And you want to draw this on graph paper.
Graph paper?
Right. So
who has graph paper?
Like the cool people.
Kids in school.
so if each square is an inch, each inch will represent 10 feet or 20 feet, however you set it up. Uh-huh. And you want to include your sidewalks, driveways, walkways, because you don't want to waste any water on these areas. And one tip I saw with one of the pros is he was using Google Maps, the satellite view. He used tracing paper on top of his computer, and then he transferred that to graph paper and used all his measurements, so he had a perfect outline of his house in his yard.
Tracing paper and graph paper.
If you're just watering a small front yard for curb appeal, you might only have one valve. But for multiple areas, most homes are going to have multiple valves, and each valve will have a zone or an area that it's going to cover. And you're going to water one zone at a time to maintain the best water pressure for full coverage by the sprinklers.
Okay.
PVC or polyethylene is the most common pipe for underground sprinklers, and both are going to be easy to cut and connect to fittings. If you're in an area that doesn't get a freezing winter, PVC is probably going to be more popular. In areas that freeze, or if you have rocky soil, a lot of pros are recommending polyethylene pipe. It has more flexibility. But the key thing is, before you start, you should find out if you need a permit to put an underground sprinkler system in your area.
Yeah, that'd be a drag if you get started and then get ticketed.
Many villages are going to require an inspection and a test of your vacuum breaker before you use your system for the first time.
What is that?
So a vacuum breaker or a backflow preventer is going to prevent the sprinkler system, the water in it, from being sucked back into your house and contaminating your drinking water. So if there's a change of pressure in the village, because it can suck up dirt, bacteria, lawn chemicals, animal waste.
Ew.
And then, your water's contaminated.
I would say so.
And specific types of backflow devices are required in different areas. So if you have to have an inspector come out, they'll let you know what type you need. And even if you don't need a permit, you always want to install a backflow preventer on your sprinkler system, whether it's a permanent system like InGround, or if you're attaching a system to your hose bib. Some villages are going to have restrictions on where you can put your sprinkler pipe. So they might say keep it a foot away from sidewalks or 7 feet away from the street, or 15 feet from a roadway. So you want to check any restrictions before you start digging. And if you're installing an in-ground sprinkler and plan on reseeding or resodding your lawn, you want to check to see if there's any restrictions first for watering. And then you might require a permit for extra watering because you need a lot of water the first few weeks when you reseed or resod. And there are restrictions also. You can get a permit that says, okay, you can water more for a couple of weeks since you just resodded your lawn.
Right.
But some will not allow it, let's say, in July or August. So it's good to plan. You should call 811 before you dig, and you're going to have to wait about 3 days in most areas to allow the utility companies to come out, and they're going to mark the location of any underground pipes or cables with flags. And then you also should check how far away from those flags you should dig. And then double check your state at call811.com. So it's CALL, the numbers, 811.com. Hawaii, for example, you need 5 days notice, and they don't want you to call any sooner than 28 days before you plan on digging. In Alaska, it's generally 2 days notice if you live in any of the towns, but if you live in any remote areas, it takes at least 10 days for utility companies to get out there. And if you plan on digging any hole in your lawn, even if you're just putting in one shrub or a mailbox, you should call 811. I just read an article of someone in our area. They were digging in their backyard, and they nicked one of the electrical lines, so they had to send a repairman out to repair it, and then he got a bill from the utility company the next month, $1,047.
Wow. So it's worth a phone call?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're planning your system, you need to know the water pressure and the gallons per minute that's going to be available to your sprinklers. So most homes are going to have 40 to 60 pounds of pressure coming into the house, and most sprinklers are designed to work around 30 psi. So the first thing you're going to do is test the static pressure in your system.
What's that?
So the static pressure is when the water's not running, and you don't want any water running in the house either. You're going to put a water gauge on the outside hose bib and turn it on full, and that's going to give you the static pressure. And now you're going to check the water flow. So this is either called the water capacity or your available flow. You're going to use a 5-gallon bucket that's marked at the 5-gallon level. You're going to turn your faucet fully on and time how long it takes to get to the 5-gallon mark. Then you're going to take 5 divided by the seconds it took to fill the bucket. Then you're going to take that number and multiply it by 60 to get your gallons per minute.
Wow, math.
So we have a 5-gallon bucket. So we're going to take 5 divided by, let's say it took 15 seconds. 5 divided by 15, you're going to get 0.333. You're going to multiply it by 60 for seconds. And that's going to give you a total of 20 gallons per minute as your water capacity, or that's your water flow available for your sprinklers. And this is a rough number for your water flow. If you have a well pump, you want to look at the pressure and the flow marked on the pump or in the manual. You're going to use this number that you figured out to find how many nozzles you could put into a zone. So let's say you have a bunch of nozzles and they all use 2 gallons per minute.
Okay.
So that's how much they use to create your spray. You could have 10 nozzles on a 20 gallon per minute capacity system. The bucket method is good if you have a small yard or a small area because it's easy, but it doesn't account for friction loss if you're running long lengths of pipe or you have a lot of changes in elevation. So if you're going up or downhill, it actually changes the pressure. And if your pipes are making a lot of changes in direction all the way around your house, that can affect it. I saw one example. They had a system that was 5 gallons per minute capacity in half-inch pipe. They said at 100 feet, you're going to lose 8 psi.
Wow.
3/4-inch pipe at 100 feet, 2 psi loss. 1-inch pipe at 100 feet, only a half a psi loss. So different types of pipe and different fittings can also cause a loss in pressure. For a more exact capacity measurement, you can go to some of the sprinkler manufacturers' websites and there's online help.
Okay.
So Hunter, for example, has a chart that shows the sprinkler system capacity. You're going to use your static pressure, your meter size. So your meter, your water meter, is going to be stamped with 5/8, 3/4, or 1 inch. They want the main water pipe size. You're going to put this all into their chart, and it's going to give you the gallons per minute for your sprinklers. Orbit, O-R-B-I-T, they have an online sprinkler designer. You're going to put in your water source, whether it's city water or well water, the pipe type the pipe size, the static pressure, water flow, and it's going to give you your gallon per minute capacity.
Okay.
Some of the top-rated sprinkler systems are from Rainbird, Hunter, Orbit, Toro, and Nelson, and you can check out their websites and get an idea of the help and support they provide. Rainbird has an interesting system, so they have a design team to help you actually lay out your system. So you can email them or fax them a diagram of your project, so you're going to draw this to scale.
On graph paper?
On graph, of course. And then you have to put all the details of the water pressure, water meter size, the size of the main pipe, the type of pipe, water flow, and they're going to send you a plan complete with a shopping list of all the parts and the sizes, and they'll get it to you within 10 days for free.
Wow.
If you want it, you want it in 5 days?
Uh-huh.
$29. You want it in 2 days? $49.
Wow.
But that's a nice service.
Yeah.
If you can't tell the size of your main water pipe, you can use a string and wrap it around the pipe. So you're just going to overlap it, and you're going to use a pen or a marker and draw a line over both pieces. When you unwind that string and measure between the marks, for copper pipe, if the measurement is 2 3/4, it's 3/4 inch pipe. If it's 3 1/2 inches long, it's 1 inch pipe. If it's 4 3/8 long, it's 1 1/4 inch pipe. If it's plastic or galvanized pipe, 3 1/4 inches is 3/4 pipe. 4 inches is 1 inch pipe. 5 inches is 1 1/4 pipe. You want to plan the location of the system controller, and this is turning on and off your valves. So this can be inside or outside. If you're putting it outside, make sure you're getting one that's rated for outside. It's going to need electric, and then you're going to be running low voltage wires to your valves. And you want to group your valves where it's going to be easy to connect to the main water pipe, and it's also going to be out of the way. You're going to be putting a cover over this. If you're in an area that doesn't freeze, your main water meter is going to be outside. So you're going to want to follow that and plan where you're going to put your valves. If you're in an area that freezes, your water meter is going to be inside, and then you need to decide where that pipe's going to be coming out of the house and the most convenient place for the valves. And if you have a group of valves for your zones, they're calling that a manifold.
Oh, fancy.
For the low voltage wires that go to your valves, you want to use waterproof wire connectors, so they're filled with silicone, or grease caps, these waterproof non-silicone wire connectors. So you have your plan where you're putting your valves and your controller. Now you're going to take your design capacity for the gallons per minute available for your sprinklers, and you're going to lay out a plan for your sprinkler placement and then how to break up your zones. So you want to take a look at the system or the company that you like and get their specs on their sprinklers. So how far do they spray and how many gallons per minute do they use?
Okay.
You want to start laying out your sprinklers on paper. So let's say
On graph paper?
Of course it is. So let's say you have a rectangular front yard. You're going to put 90-degree sprinklers in the corners and draw how far they're going to spray, and you're doing this all to scale. One of the Torah sprinklers I looked at, it's a 90-degree spray. It sprays 5 feet. It uses 0.09 gallons per minute at 30 to 40 psi, and it has half-inch male thread. An adjustable Hunter rotating sprinkler I saw could be adjusted from a 50-degree to a 360-degree angle, and the spray adjusts from 4 feet to 17 feet, and it uses 0.36 up to 4 gallons per minute, depending on how far it throws the water, and it had half-inch female thread. One of the Rainbird nozzles, it goes into a sprinkler body. It has a 10-foot spray at 30 psi, and it uses 0.5 gallons per minute. So in this example, we're going to put 4 sprinklers in the corner, and we're going to mark how far they go, and depending on which sprinkler I pick, now we have to fill in the rest of that area.
Okay.
Along the edge, you're going to use 180-degree sprinklers, and you want the spray to extend to the next sprinkler head. So this is called head-to-head coverage. So each sprinkler is going to reach the next one, but not past it. And you don't want the water to fall short because you want uniform coverage. And then if you need to cover area in the middle of this rectangle, let's say, you're going to use 360-degree sprinklers in the center. And then you're going to pick the type and how far it sprays. So you completely cover the whole area. You have head-to-head coverage, and it all stays within your gallons per minute water flow. So let's say that for our first example where we talked about we had 20 gallon per minute water flow capacity.
Right.
Let's say we use 11 sprinklers in this rectangular area, and each one uses 1.5 gallons per minute. That would be a total of 16.5 gallons per minute, which would be perfect. It gives us a little leeway, too. It's nice to be a little under the water flow, and that's how you're going to work each section. For outside corners, you can get 270-degree sprinklers, like the corner of a house. For narrow strips of grass, like the parkway between the street and the sidewalk, there are special nozzles that will just cover a narrow area. And most of these sprinklers will let you swap out different nozzles to vary the spray pattern, or if they get bad, you can change them. And many of the sprinklers don't come with a nozzle. You actually have to buy the body and then add a nozzle to it. So the spray heads, these are fixed, and they give you a specific pattern, like 90, 45, 360, 120, or 240 degrees. And then you can also get rotating nozzles that send multiple streams of water out, and they rotate, and then they're either going to have a fixed angle, or you can adjust the pattern. And many of these, the rotating types, are going to have thicker streams of water, so they lose less water in evaporation compared to nozzles that create more of a mist.
Okay.
For lawns, you want a sprinkler that's below ground till the water's turned on, then it pops up to water your lawn. So you want to get a pop-up height that's going to match the length that you keep your grass. If you have cool season grass and you have cold winters, you're probably keeping your lawn somewhere around 3 inches high. Okay. So you want a sprinkler that's going to pop up to around 4 inches. If you have a warm season grass, you don't get freezing winters. Generally, you're keeping your grass around 2 inches long, so a 3-inch pop-up sprinkler would be good for that lawn. And you want to get pop-up sprinklers with springs that pull the nozzles back down into the body, and that's going to prevent a tripping hazard or running it over with a lawnmower. Because some of them are just gravity, where they just drop down through gravity, which isn't as effective as the spring-loaded. For landscape areas, you can use bubblers or drip irrigation nozzles to keep the water right at the plants rather than watering a whole area that doesn't have any plants. Like some of these landscape areas, if you only have a few plants there. So if you're watering shrubs or trees with nozzles that are different than your lawn, you want to keep that group on one zone or one valve. You don't want to mix and match different types of nozzles because it's going to affect how well it works. So you want to have spray type in your lawn and then bubbler or drip in your landscape area. And each in a different zone. Once you have your sprinkler plan, you need to plan on where you're going to be running your underground pipe. And if you're working with one of the online planning tools, they're going to help pick the size of the pipe. For a basic system in an average size home, many pros are suggesting use 1-inch main pipe and then 3/4 inch lateral pipe. And then you're going to bush down your fittings to 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch. And that's the last little section that's going to go to your sprinkler. So the bigger your pipe, the more pressure and the more flow you're going to have. You want the main pipe that's coming out of your valve to feed the lateral pipes the most direct way for the best water pressure. Let's say we have that rectangular lawn and our main valve is right by the house and it's going in the middle of that rectangle. I would have my main pipe, my 1-inch pipe, go straight across the lawn to the end of the lawn, and then my lateral pipes would come out to the right and to the left of it, and that would feed my sprinkler heads. So your main pipe fills with water pressure, and then it goes into all these laterals. So those first 2 laterals are making like a T shape, and then it goes on to another T shape and a third T shape, let's say, for example. And this is going to give you the best water pressure. If I tried to create one continuous loop, let's say, around my lawn, and it came out of the valve and then went to a 90-degree turn, and then another 90-degree turn, and another 90-degree turn, and then fed my sprinklers off that, by the end of that run, the sprinklers would have very little pressure. If you're in a climate that doesn't freeze, your meter's probably going to be outside, and you're going to connect a T-fitting in the main pipe somewhere after that water meter. And you want to make it the most convenient because you're going to add a shut-off valve to your sprinkler system, and then you're going to need to put a backflow preventer on there. If your meter's outside, most of the backflow have to have a pipe coming up and out of the ground. You have your backflow about 12 inches higher than the sprinkler heads. Then that pipe's going to come back down underground, and then it's going to feed your sprinklers. If you're in a cold climate, your water meter is going to be on the inside, and you're going to connect a T past the meter, then you're going to run a shutoff valve for the sprinkler system, your backflow device. For cold climates, you can use a drain valve. So this has to be oriented so that when the valve is turned off, a cap can be removed and the line going outside can drain, or this can help you drain the system.
Okay.
You can use marking spray paint to lay out the areas for your pipe, and use flags to mark the location of your sprinklers. And you want to measure this out exactly. Then you can dig your trenches to lay your pipe. You usually want it about 6 to 10 inches deep. If you plan on aerating your lawn, you definitely want to go deep, because those aeration plugs, depending on who you hire, if you hire someone, it could be 6 inches deep. 3 inches is pretty common. But a deeper trench is going to give you more room to adjust your sprinklers. And then if you accidentally, if you're digging out in your yard, if you just forget that you have pipe out in the yard. When you're cutting your pipe, you want to use a pipe cutter rather than a hacksaw. It's going to prevent rough edges, and any burrs on the pipe can break loose and then clog your sprinklers. You also want to dry fit all of the pipe and all the fittings first before you glue them or use any hose clamps.
Okay.
Lay out your manifold. And
that's the valves?
Yes, and then run.
See, I was paying attention.
Run low voltage wire to your valves. You can dig a little deeper and lay down a bed of pea gravel there, and it's going to support the valves and your cover. And then you're going to be using T fittings and elbows to connect to the sprinklers, and they can either be threaded or hose barbs. If you're threading it to a fitting, you can use lengths of threaded pipe, so plastic pipe. Some of them come in sections, so you can buy, let's say, a 6-inch length of this. It's threaded with areas that you can cut to size, so that's convenient. Or you can run it to rubber hose, and that makes adjusting it much easier. You can get funny pipe.
Is that really the name of it?
So different companies have different versions of this. It's either going to be
yes.
It's either going to be a flexible connection, or it's going to be a length of tube with articulating elbows. And this allows the sprinkler to flex, so if you run over it with a mower or if it ever needs to be repositioned.
Okay.
And then Toro has flexible pipe called Super Funny Pipe. So this goes from the lateral pipe fittings up to the sprinkler, and this allows you to very easily set it in place or adjust it in the future. For areas that freeze, have sprinklers that can be drained, or add drain fittings to your pipe for the off-season. It's going to need to be drained or the water blown out with a compressor. And before you connect your valves, clean out the main pipe to the valves by opening it up and running water through it. For PVC pipe, make sure you're using primer and a glue that's rated for PVC, and make sure the parts are clean and deburred.
Okay.
Once you have all your pipes connected, you want to manually run one zone at a time and check for leaks. Then you're going to fill in dirt up to the top of the sprinklers, and then position your grass. Anything that
What grass? You just dug it all up.
Right. If you dug it up, then push it back.
So save the grass?
Yes, save the grass. And then you want to connect your controller and set up your timer. And if all this sounds like too much work, there's an easy system for a small yard or just your front yard. Rainbird has a kit. It comes with a timer you screw right into the hose bib, so you don't have to cut into the main water supply. You don't have to do anything with calculating, because it comes with a roll of standard poly pipes, 6 sprinklers, and all the fittings. You probably want to draw out a plan so it's spaced nice, but this is very easy. And then there's also a company called Redneck Irrigation, and it has kits for small, medium, and large yards. You just connect it to the hose bib too, and it's going to be underground irrigation, but there's no cutting into the main line or calculating water flow or sprinkler GPMs.
Do you have anything else to add?
Lay out a diagram and plan the project first. Use companies' online help. Analyze the sprinklers, how far they spray, the gallons per minute. Figure out the best grouping for your valves and running your pipe. And if you spend the time to plan, it's going to make the job much easier and it's going to work better.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, CastBox, Player FM, or your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter at FixItCohost.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.